I'm very excited to have my special guest, Ryan White from Rode Microphones, who's on with me. And big thanks to Rode and to Ryan for hooking me up with this beautiful podcast setup with the microphone and the interface and all that goes with that. So, welcome, Ryan White from where are you at, Ryan? You're in Missouri, right?
I'm actually in Arkansas,
Arkansas.
and
Okay.
Oklahoma. I'm in Fort Smith, Arkansas, right on the border, Oklahoma and Arkansas. The missus moved me down here for her medical residency, so we're actually going through her medical career path. So, one, it's I'm very happy to be down here. I'm from Kansas City originally, and that's where I've been with Rode remote for 6 years now.
Cool. And so I think when we originally had our conversation, we got introduced by our mutual friend, Jesse Dean, who said, "You need to talk to my buddy Ryan. He will hook you up." So,
Absolutely.
so just so everybody's aware of what this podcast is about, we basically just want to explore working professionals that are anywhere in the entertainment industry. And we just want to find out who they are and what they do and why they do it. And I think that'll answer a lot of questions. I think when I originally started this podcast, it was that was the goal in mind, was to just sort of help people that are interested in gear can learn about it, but also what's most important is like what do you do with the gear and why do you do it? And that's really the artistry behind what we want to kind of learn about, because there's a lot of technical information out there. Let's face it, with people that are like, what were your settings on that shot, or what kind of levels were you using, and um, that's those are important things, of course, but it's more important to like talk to someone like yourself that can share like, hey, these are the little nuances and this is how I got good at my craft. So tell everybody, just obviously we just did the introduction, so we know who you are. So what is it exactly that you do on your day to day, as far as your experience and your background?
Absolutely. Yeah. For Rode microphones, I'm the US product specialist, and I like to lovingly call it the microphone geek. I don't sell a single thing other than through passion and my energy towards this technology. I've been doing it for 17 years. I caught the bug back in high school, in theater. My principal, for some reason, asked me if I could run the brand new theater system. I said, I don't know. And she went, "You get out of class." And I went, "Okay."
Yeah.
Sign me up. I want to go. And I caught the bug. I did all the theater productions for 3 years. If the teachers had a meeting, I went and did it. Um, and through a very convoluted like connection of people that I know, and I always make the joke that I knew the right person and then I was good enough to not get fired. As far as like, I've been back and forth between Kansas, Arizona, and LA my entire professional audio career, and made great connections. Jesse Dean was one of them. And Jesse and I worked together at Steven Slate Drums. If anybody's familiar with that, it's a drum software company, and they develop a lot of plugins for, making your audio pretty for music mostly. And Jesse was moving on to a new thing at that point, and then I worked for Slate for about a year and a half. Moved to a couple different places, and he called me up one time and said, "Hey, you want to do the product specialty job for Rode? You move back out to LA and travel for us." And I'd always wanted to travel for work, so I did it, and here we are. 6 years later. So again, knew the right person, got the call. It was good enough to not get fired. So on a day to day, during normal circumstances, I will actually travel out to these local retail shops and do their special events. I'll do classes. I will stand behind the desk with a bunch of Row products and just show them off, teach people about the new things, teach them about their end user goals. You were talking about the interface and the microphone you got there. Basically, if you were to walk into, I was just talking with the guys at Midwest Photo down in Columbus, Ohio, and they're working on getting that AI1 kit and a complete studio kit from Rode working. And I'd basically come in and have that on the desk, have it set up, maybe put a computer out there to where people could record and show you how to set up your podcast. I'm using the Rodecaster Pro right now. And when that came out and the Pod mic came out, that's all I'd take. I'd take that over to the desk, light it all up, get it recording, get a boom pole and a mic kind of set up just like this, and teach that end user, hey, if you're doing a podcast, Here's the gear that you can use and why it sounds good, why it's going to be helpful to you. And then, of course, the sales guys then take that, and they're the ones who, we're a wholesaler at Rode and we're a distributor for Australia, which is where all this stuff is manufactured. So technically speaking, we're not retailers at all. We just sell it to the Guitar Centers, the Midwest Photos, the store that's down at your local whatever, Sammy's Photo out where you are, things like that, and then they sell it. So I go out and teach those people how to sell those things.
That's awesome. And so a big part of your job is obviously just education, for the most part, and then and showing people how the gear can work for them, as opposed to, you're not like trying to sell something. You're
Right.
if you're selling anything, it's you're selling people on the idea that, hey, this is something that can help you and that you can move forward with your um the things that you're trying to pursue, and guiding them. And so that's a really important thing. I think a lot of times we go into to retail stores and it's like, hey, can you show me that? And people just like point at the glass case and they don't really understand what they're even
Right.
pointing at. It just looks cool. And they're like, what does that do? And then like, oh yeah, that's a microphone. Well, that was really helpful. Like, do you want to tell me how it works, or do you want to ask me what I need it for? I mean, it's like, sort of the car salesman mentality some people have when you go into these retail stores. So I
So
think it's great. I'd much rather talk to a rep, someone like yourself. I've found that, once I started transitioning from the cinematography side of the world, which I grew up in for the last 30 years in Hollywood, with making movies and television commercials and episodic TV. Um, it was a much different world, transferring back into the photography world where I started, because now all of a sudden there's like all this lighting, and there's location work, and I'm used to just turning to my gaffer and saying, "Hey, let's push some light through that window out there," and he sets up all the light, because I'm explaining what the look is that I'm after with
mhm,
my with my shot and what the mood of the project is, and he just executes that whole. So all of a sudden I'm the photographer, which makes me the director at the same time.
right.
And now it's like I'm responsible for putting the light where it's supposed to go, and I have to figure that all out on my own. I have an assistant, and I have to explain what I'm doing with that light, and now he has to figure out how to use it. Sometimes you're working with assistants that aren't necessarily savvy with the kind of gear that you use. So I made a lot of phone calls when I first started. I talked to a lot of guys like you, like Pro Photo. I talked to guys at Canon. I was very fortunate that the retail store that I bought all my equipment from, there were guys that were working professionals in the store, which is really, really great to have that. So, well, let's talk a little bit about the technology. I mean, there's a lot of people that are like, right now, I'm doing my first podcast. This is the coronavirus sort of kicked it in the pants for me to get this thing rolling, but this is something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, just to be able to help share people. And it was originally titled Behind the Artist, which that's already taken that title. And I thought, well, the Photography Foundation sounded really good to me, because everything is photography, whether it's a moving picture in a movie or whether it's a still image. Like, we're all building images together, whether regardless of the venue. And I thought like foundation was a good tag word at the end of that, because we're giving people a foundation of knowledge, and that's really important, that
Right.
they can learn and grow and get inspired by seeing certain things or hearing from people like yourself that can share a tremendous amount of background and help them get started, so that they have a good foundation. It's like taking a golf
Absolutely.
lesson, and or not taking a golf lesson and just getting out there and hacking around. I would have never been able to set this whole thing up without your help. So,
Appreciate it.
so
Yeah.
again, thank you for that.
Absolutely, man. And it's totally cool. You're absolutely right too, with everything being as weird as it is right now. Even you and I, had limitations to what gear we could get. And, you're using a condenser microphone that sounds great right now. And we're working on getting you that pop filters where things kind of aren't as plosive and stuff like that. So it's a give and a take, but it's professional gear on a budget. Uh, I like it to go back to the fact that these are Australian made microphones that are not Chinese made. So I'm proud that no matter what I send you, I'm capable of giving you something that I'm also going to use myself. Right, that AI one, which is the audio interface one for the people that don't know out there, is a small little interface that, yeah, you're able to pull it in.
Here
There
we
you
go.
go, right there, man. Just headphones out, mic in, USB to your computer. Job done, right?
Super
Turn up a
simple.
few knobs. That's right. That little kit gets you started, right? I was saying I was using the Rodecaster Pro, and we're gonna get you into that eventually, right?
Can't
And
wait.
the whole goal of it is to just continue to optimize, even with the problems that you have. I bring up the situation we're in and what I'm able to send you now, and the professionalism we can get out of just small setups that are limited. Um, it's my job to talk to guys like you who are industry pros that are going to be able to do this better, and want to do it better, have a passion to do it better, but even with our video mic line, which is a camera top DSLR microphone, you can take that $60 microphone and do a heck of a lot of work with it if you're willing to put in just a little bit of effort. And most of the stuff that you got there is fully capable of doing this job, and then you just keep honing in and make it better and make it better and make it better. And all the people that are calling me, not just yourself and the level you are at with the industry, but a mom just trying to record her kid, or she starts like a home business that is just takes off, starts killing it. And before they know it, they're doing an Instagram feed of content, or they're like, wow, I could really just put this content out there and try to monetize it. Just doing what I'm doing already. And all of a sudden you're a podcaster. It's like, now you got
Right.
to teach that person how to do lighting, how to do video, how to do microphone setups. We're just trying to make it as easy as humanly possible. But then I'm the passion teacher. I think everybody can probably tell just by the way I'm talking about it now is just,
Exactly.
I'm going to teach you as a Rode fanboy. It's great that I work for them now, but I knew and used them prior to even working for them. Um, what it's capable of. And that's not to say that any of the other companies can't do it either. I answer many questions about those competitor items as well. But how do I plug it into my phone? How do I simply just point that microphone, and upgrade the sound just by, what I already have? And that's my thing. And I'll try to keep you around for, not you right now, but if you come into the store and talk to me, I'll try to keep you around for 5, 10, 15 minutes and just say, not buy this microphone, have a good day, but buy this microphone, run this cable to here, set this wire over there, turn this knob up to here, double check this, and then have a good day, because you're going to have a better day once you know those things. Now, I have to also try to learn how to hone that in and not um, completely be like a person's tech support on call, because I got a
Right.
job to
Right.
do also,
Yeah.
but I, all my coworkers would tell you that I'll take these calls any time of day,
No, I
anytime,
mean, that was
you
one of
know?
the first things that I sort of discovered. I think we discovered about each other is like we're both very passionate about what we do, and we get
Right.
kind of excited about you know what we do. I mean, it's impossible. It's like, guys that go to car shows, they're like, oh yeah, I got this car, and there's this whole story behind it. And I think that's what's great about podcasts is we get to learn who people are. We get to know what makes them tick. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that may be thinking about doing a podcast or want to do a podcast, and they're excited about it. There's a lot of user groups out there on Facebook where people just kind of connect and they kind of banter back and forth. But I tell my clients, like, look, man, video is so much more engaging than just a picture or a text, or it's like we need human interaction. I mean, that's the big
Especially
the
now.
big challenge with this coronavirus right now is we just can't get together and do the things we do. And this is the next best thing. I think the technology's opened a lot of doors for people to communicate that wouldn't necessarily be able to communicate like they would in the past. And so I wanted to start this podcast. And so there's a lot of different ways that people could probably start this off. Like, what would your suggestion be with somebody that maybe wanted to start a podcast? And what are some of the challenges that they might face when they get started? And how can they sort of minimize those challenges and get started off on the right foot? Like, kind of like what you did with me. Like, I'm sure not everybody's going to be like, let's hang up and like everyone's going to be calling Ryan now. Like,
Right.
what there's the danger of the YouTube bombing where you're just kind of combing through videos and like, well, who's this guy? This guy barely speaks English and I can't understand what he's saying. I mean, I run into that a lot.
Or the guys who just
Because
tell
there's
you
people all over the world that are doing YouTube videos. But how do you know who to listen to, and what would you suggest to people that want to learn how to get this started?
I'm gonna go right back to what you said earlier. That's my first disclaimer, especially like you said, as far as the YouTube bomb. Just there's so much content, and the first thing I'm looking for in your video, despite quality, forget about quality for a second. I'm talking about the person. It's usually an overly aggressive dude who's just yelling at the camera saying, you need this compression, you need this input, you need that microphone, you need that speaker. If you don't have that, don't even talk to me. Wrong answer. And I have had this conversation with various, not just my coworkers, but I used to, back in college, I used to work at Guitar Center and stuff like that. And it's, it's the conversation of just like, do you sell fast or do you sell good? Sell well, Um,
Quality over quantity for sure.
it's always and forever going to be a debate, man. It's like, I get that, especially if you're a salesman and you're commission based or whatever, let's put that aside. But if that's you, you have to sell faster to make more money, but you don't have to sell faster if you don't want to make more money. There's always that other side. But of course, if you work for a business that's profitable, and I'm not just talking about Guitar Center, but there's always a middle is what I'm really getting at. It's not as black and white as just sell fast or sell well. My technique definitely leans towards the sell well. I don't get calls back from a standpoint of, you didn't, even when I worked there, is like, I sold a guitar amplifier and it's like they knew where to go to either find more information or they already knew most of it, at least enough to get them started. And um, I'm not, yeah, I had a dad who bought a piano, a motif, like one of the industry standard, absolutely complicated piano, and he hired me a week later just as a freelance audio engineer to come and teach him and his daughter how to even use the dang thing. And he had a manual right there. But that's the kind of follow up that I do, and it was a good thing for my personal side hustle. You know what I mean? It wasn't just a sales call, but you'll also get the guys who come in and they want that the tech support for free. Hey, you work at this store and you need to also then teach me everything there is to know about this piano. And
Yeah, and a
oh,
lot of times people will, if you call up somebody like that, like, well, where did you buy it? They're the ones that are supposed to be supporting you. So, educating not only the end user, but also just educating the people that are selling your gear, I think is a really, really important thing. In the companies like Rode, and companies like just in the photography end of things for me, like Pro Photo and Canon, and a new company that I just started working with, Light and Motion. Like, they're very big on trying to get people to understand how to use their equipment so that they can maximize their efficiency and get the job done. Because let's face it, the last thing you want to do is go buy expensive equipment and not know how to use it. And the analogy I always use is, having a nice piece of equipment and not knowing how to use it is to me is epic failure. I'd rather have somebody start off with something small that they can afford and kind of get used to it. The great example of that is drones. Like, you don't go buy a, a $4,000 DJI Inspire 2 and just learn how to fly that thing, and then you crash into somebody's garage, or it lands on somebody, God forbid. So
right.
start off small with things like that. But the other thing too is, um, I heard this a long time ago when I first started working in the film industry. Someone said, when you know what you're doing, it doesn't matter what kind of equipment that you're using. And when you know what you're doing, it doesn't matter what kind of equipment that you're using. Did I just say that right? I'm dyslexic.
No,
So
you got it. Yeah.
it's like, when you're first learning, your craft and anything else, 80% of what you think about is the mechanics of it. Like, and do I have this turned on right? Is this setting correct? Did
Right.
I put the filter on the camera correctly, or did I have the microphone plugged in where it was supposed to go? And
Mhm.
then as you learn the mechanics of that, it becomes 20% of your craft that you think about, and 80% of it is the artistry behind it. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really important thing.
That's a good way to
um,
put that. I do that. I talk about that in my class all the time, and I never necessarily reflect on the 80-20 rule, but you're absolutely correct. I make the joke that my dad can learn how to do this stuff, right? Like, he's a plumber by trade. So it's like he could teach me that. That's a trade, and vice versa, right? So I mean, it's just a matter of learning where the buttons are, pushing those buttons, turning those knobs, plugging in those cords. I would say 80% of my tech calls are signal flow based. Where do I plug in this cable? What is that cable? Well, I plugged in a cable that looks similar to it. Okay, send me a picture of that cable. I did. Okay, that's close. Not the right cable. Send them an Amazon link or whatever. find out who their local dealer is. If it's a road product, I always find who the local dealer is, get them in there first, because not only will that be supportive of the companies that we support and they support us, but also they're going to get a person. No offense to Amazon or B&H and stuff like that. A lot of box moving, right? And B&H does a great job for being as big as they are at supporting on like the follow-up support. Sweetwater does the same thing for the audio industry. Um, the goal here is to have that available to you, but to still remember as a customer that you got a lot to learn, and these people are still selling, right? Like they still have other customers other than you too. But going back to your question about YouTube, and that's the first thing, is that person who just spouts out, get this, get this, get this, get this, is probably a good starting point. And I always defend them in the sense of like, what they told you was not supposed to be artistic. It was supposed to be a solution.
Right.
It's a huge difference. But like you said, you kind of pivot as a person learning this. If I teach my dad this, he starts out knowing the goal that he wants to achieve, but the art behind it is maybe 20%, and it probably starts out at something like 0% and then has to work its way back, And as you start learning, what the heck's a condenser microphone? What the heck does a polar pattern mean? What the heck does a frequency response mean? Those are my three things that I teach people when buying a microphone. Without getting into that full one-on-one class, maybe we do that someday if you're interested. But you have to learn what the heck that lingo even means before it even is usable to you.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
my
it's important to have a basic foundation, and there's plenty of great material out there where if you just want to like the basics of getting started, the workshops that I teach are to I teach filmmaking for photographers, and it actually came about as I met a really successful wedding photographer in Chicago. She's like one of the top people around, Sherry Hagerman. We're actually very good friends today, and she runs a huge a conference called ClickCon that's about to have its second year this year, God willing, with all the coronavirus. But
yeah. I've
I
gotten
invited her initially to do
emails.
a workshop called Behind the Artist, which I'd mentioned earlier. And so I thought, what if instead of doing a technical workshop, we had one that was geared towards artists and thinking like an artist, and not like how did you do that, but why did you do that, right? So I brought in a portrait photographer, a fashion photographer, a wedding photographer, and then I sort of came in um, as an event photographer and a filmmaker. And I done my share of real estate stuff, which is a lot of fun because you don't have to deal with anybody. It's very easy in and out. And I thought that we could bring an entire community of photographers into that sort of workshop, because it's not like, well, I'm not a wedding photographer. Why would I go to the Sherry Hagerman's workshop? I mean, she's
Mhm.
a great teacher. She's incredibly knowledgeable, but if that's not what I want to do, I wouldn't want to spend money or invest in that. And so that was something that was, really important to me, is to have that knowledge. And so people that can find a mentor or find someone, I think the important thing is to just, I think YouTube is a great starting point to find someone that you like, that you can
Mhm.
relate to, that you can connect with. And that seems, it's not the height of your logic, but the depth of your conviction.
Right.
Because like you said earlier, there's a lot of people are just screaming on YouTube, and
Right.
I don't need to be entertained by you. I want to be informed by you, and I
Right.
want to be inspired by you. And that's what I look for when I go to YouTube.
And
Which
something you
sort of
talked
leads me
about.
to my last thing that I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you about is
Mhm.
what inspires you and drives you as a technical person and as an artist in what you get to do in your day to day, and maybe outside of what you do in your day to day.
I've had this conversation with the missus often, actually, because I am the person who wants to take that call at 9 p.m. I don't have hours. I've been working on some boundaries, like if I'm at dinner with her, phone goes away. You know what I mean? Like if it's
I
during the
figure
work
that's a good way to
hour.
stay married.
Exactly, right? Yeah, yeah. Just gotta. There's a balance to everything, and one of the things that I love to do, and what keeps me ticking in this job, um, one is that road doesn't pressure me. I love the guidance that they give me as far as and the freedom to to go and just passionately talk about road. Like the fact that I also on top, so much of the industry from this angle or manufacturing or definitely a sales side is money, is just sales, right? And we got to keep the doors open. Everybody understands that. But um, with the hierarchy that they've set up, it's very small, close, family friendly. Um, what keeps me ticking inside of that from both what they've allowed me to do and talking to people is just I just have to go talk passionately about what I like to talk about, you know? So my job is to go talk about microphones. How hard is that? You know, it's
Right.
not. You know, there's always politics, there's always things relationally or informationally coming from, I mean, shoot, the company's in Australia. We're in Long Beach. I'm in Kansas or now Arkansas, right? So we're all over the place. We're spread out. We're a worldwide company. And you just do the best you can to get as informed as you possibly can. And then I use my basis, my knowledge that I've had for those 17 years and kind of run with it myself. So not only do I give them a good run, they give me a good run. We're a good collection of um, I'm free to do that stuff without the force from the other side to sell dollars, you know, or anything like that. Um, on top of that, the passion is knowing that I've helped somebody actually achieve their goal. And that could be simply just learning what a dynamic microphone is. You know, it doesn't even have to be how do I make a YouTube video to make money? It can still, that can be your goal. What I was going to say earlier about some of our previous conversations was that you have you have to kind of declare what it is you're doing. And one of my first things to do when you come up to me at one of those events is to qualify you. Guitar Center always called it qualify the customer, and I still use that. It's who are you and what do you need? And you know the first couple questions, and I know it's not about money all the time, but it is a little bit about money. It's like how much do you want to think about the tech, and how much money do you got?
Sure. Yeah.
It can't just
It's an
be like how much
investment. When
money do
people
you have?
contact me and say, "What do you charge?" It's like, well, the first question out of my mouth is, are you more concerned, are you more price conscious right now, or are you quality conscious? Because those two things do not line up. It's Whole
You said it.
Foods or it's McDonald's. You know, nothing against either, you know,
Money
McDonald's
disconnect.
because they serve a purpose too. But if you're looking for something fast and inexpensive, you're going to go there. But if you're like, you want quality and you want healthy and you want to know what the ingredients that are in your food, you go to Whole Foods. And so those are really important questions. I'm glad you brought that up.
Absolutely. Finding out exactly what those people need. And sometimes it's a little bit convoluted. It's a little hard to get to that point, but and sometimes we may not even know. You know, we were talking about Instagram versus Facebook or something like that where is your goal to just do 5 minute 5 second snippets and you just want to run and gun, or are you wanting to do sit down and create a podcast like you're doing right now with video options, with the audio options, um, with the interaction? Because now we're all learning Zoom. Now we're all learning Skype a little bit better. We're figuring out some of these new softwares that are not in fact new. They've been around for a decade, and they just haven't been as necessary. And now we're in a pandemic, and it's like, oh, I got to do this. So now it's about how do I solve that? How do I create the content in this space? And it's terrible, but it's Rode has been doing pretty well with this because a lot of radio stations are moving home and they've had to take that gear, and so we're out of it. Or otherwise it's not a blessing outright because there's a lot of bad going on right now. It's more just about during that, how can we still help you? How can we
Right.
get you to
Right.
where you're at a point to be able
Agreed.
to stay sane, stay safe, create new content? People are adapting and innovating, and that's
Quickly.
what makes me sleep at night is like I helped you do that. And sometimes that's at 9 o'clock at night, sometimes it's six in the morning.
Yeah. No, that's great stuff. So, and just sort of wrapping things up here, with this, Ryan, if, you know, what are sort of, if you wanted to give somebody, like, what are the three big takeaways that we hope to achieve with giving people this information through this podcast about wanting to start a podcast of their own, and how to get started initially? What would you say? Like, here's the three important things you want to look out for.
With the audio,
Yeah, just in starting, like in starting a podcast, like,
starting
you
a
know,
podcast
what are three things that, you know, we want our audience here that's going to check this video out. What do you want them to take away from that?
from my standpoint, and I struggle with some of this. The first thing, and it's a generalization, is just start recording. I'm bad about it, and I have a pretty nice job, and I love my job. And it's like, could I also do some content beyond that? To teach, to educate, or lead people in there. But sometimes you just got to hit record. And I think it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt that actually has it's either a podcast or a YouTube channel that's actually just out. Maybe it's a full on company if I remember correctly, but it's just I think it's push record or press record or something along those lines. But it's just the concept is the same. Just start doing it, and it'll get better. You know, you can only have what you can have when you can have it, and you just got to do it. And then from an audio standpoint, check your room. Your room's got to be pretty decent. Echoes and reverbs and things like that can never go away, and it's a common oversight. And then do a little bit of research before on those three factors of type of microphone, polar pattern, and learn a little bit about that before you make that investment. Because, like you said, you can buy a inexpensive $50 microphone and make it work for you, or you could buy a $3,000 microphone and make it work for you. It's just completely up to what you want to accomplish and why you're accomplishing it. And that is my last thing: is always learn, keep learning, because the first person that tells me that they got it all figured out is the first person I dismiss. I've been doing it for 17 years and I'm still there's always another thing. And I'm not even talking about outside of your realm. I'm still learning about compression and EQ today. I've been doing it for that long, and it's still a mystery. Not that it's not findable or like you can't learn it, but the moment I tell people that I got it all figured out is the moment that I certainly Murphy or karma or whatever is going to just punch me in the face and show people that no, he doesn't.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Tiger Woods was the greatest example of that. What I think after he
Oh,
won one of the Masters, he just went out and just went to the driving range and just hit a whole bunch of balls. And it's like I had the pleasure of working with Michael Jordan a lot on commercials back in the '80s, and getting around a guy like that level of an athlete, and hearing the way they talk and their work ethic and their perseverance and their coach. I mean, even a player as great as Michael Jordan is, and was back when he was playing professionally, he had a coach. And I think it's important that we always have someone that is bigger and more accomplished than where we're at, and that we should never stop learning. I think um, they say the first 20 years of your life you spend learning, and the next 20 years of your life you spend earning, and in the last 20 years of your life you should spend investing in others and giving back. And I think as we share information and as we learn information, I think it's a circle. I think it's
yeah.
always, you're always learning, you're always growing, you're always sharing. I think that's what makes it's so enjoyable to talk to people like you that have that mindset and are doing that. So
Second.
Ryan, thank you so much for your time, and thank you again to Rode Microphones for helping me get my podcast launched. I certainly appreciate all the help and support that you guys have given me. And
Our pleasure, and we're gonna keep helping it, man. It's always like we said, it's always gonna keep growing and keep getting better and keep you going, man. So we're here to support.
Awesome. So thanks again, everybody, for checking out the first episode of the Photography Foundation. We've been chatting with Ryan White from Rode Microphones, who's been kind enough to share a lot of great information with us today. So we're going to have a lot more of these coming down the road with all different kinds of folks from the entertainment industry, the music industry, the photography industry, film and television. I mean, you name it. So we're excited about that. And so thanks again for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you soon.